Joining us now from Louisville, Kentucky, the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary president and host of the podcast, The Briefing, Dr. Al Mohler. Dr. Mohler, welcome to Freedom Sunday.
Tony, it's great to be with you and all there. Thank you so very much. This is really important.
Let me ask you this, Dr. Mohler. Did you ever think that we would be in this situation in America where churches are closed and so many of them have been restricted for so long?
No, Tony, I never thought we would see anything like this, and yet this is what we face. And the reality is we're looking at it over a long period of time now. We see a political opportunism here by the secular left that goes beyond anything that we even saw coming with the pandemic. Reasonable, temporary, generally applicable restrictions in a pandemic, they make sense. And out of love of God and love of neighbor, we respect those. But when it comes to what's going on with the Governor Newsom there in California, when you think about Mayor Bowser in Washington, D.C., when you think about the governor of Nevada, and you just go down state by state in so many cases, there's an overt secular hostility that is using the pandemic as an opportunity. It's opportunistic. And we've gone far beyond anything reasonable. There's overt discrimination against Christian and religious groups. And speaking of the fact, we're here as Christians tonight in the name of Christ. But religious freedom also includes Orthodox Jews right now who are in New York facing restrictions by New York Mayor Bill de Blasio that are clearly unconstitutional and targeted. And so religious freedom is now endangered all across the board.
Dr. Mohler, as believers, we seek to live in peace. We obey the law. We're law and order. And, we often hear about what Romans chapter 13 says. But we've come to a point we have to measure and weigh what the Scripture says. What does the Scripture say in terms of giving instruction to the church where we are today?
Well, I think it's so interesting you brought up Romans 13 because our minds as Christians just go immediately there, where Paul talks about the righteous role of government, so much that the Reformers said that we always need to understand that when the government acts rightly, it's acting as the servant of God. But we not only have Romans 13 about obeying government, we also have the orders of, Daniel or Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the Old Testament, examples of those who would not bend the knee. And let's remember, the Apostle Paul would not declare that the Roman emperor was God and paid for it with his life as a martyr. So, we're in a position where we need to remember that righteous orders are to be obeyed, rational laws, even temporary restrictions. But when we see an order not to worship the one true and living God, with the church ordered not to forsake the assembling of ourselves together, where there are just blanket and discriminatory prescriptions against churches, we've got to call it what it is, and we've got to resist.
We have biblical authority. You are being highly affirmed here tonight, Dr. Mohler. We have biblical authority, but we also have constitutional protection. And so while we are, as you made reference to Paul, we exercise our rights as Americans, we should demand justice, whatever it takes, to make sure that first freedom is protected.
The founders of this country, just as you say, Tony, our constitutional framers and founders, they understood that if we don't defend freedom when it's at risk, we lose it. And so that's something verified throughout human history, and particularly in American history. And when you look at our Constitution, we think about the Bill of Rights, and the enshrinement of religious liberty is our first liberty, but with it comes freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and freedom of assembly. And so we now understand just how interconnected these things are, but we as Christians understand why, theologically and constitutionally, freedom of religion is the first freedom. If it's violated, none of the other freedoms will stand. And if it's honored, every other freedom will take its place, every right for freedom. And so that's why we've got to pray, we've got to stand, we've got to vote, we've got to make clear, and this is a matter of our Christian conviction first, and our constitutional claims rightly on the sacred text of that is to say, the honored text of the Constitution. And we are doing exactly, I think, what the framers and founders of this nation would have respected.
So, Dr. Mohler, final question with the desire for complete clarity. Is it time for the church to resist these unlawful restrictions being placed on churches?
when they are not temporary, they are not rational, and where they are not generally applicable, where there is discrimination against religion, the church first, we speak up as Christians, but frankly, we need to speak up for the Orthodox Jewish community where it's under threat and others as well. Yes, it is time to say enough is enough.
Dr. Al Mohler, thank you so much for joining us for Freedom Sunday.
Thank you, Larry.